Get rid of the interactive help, it's history. The life preserver gives you your interactive help window back. So just like you need a life preserver, this is a very quick reference guide to help new operators run the software bundle. Right? So it asks you, what would you like to do? I would like to work with Spectra. And that's going to flow chart me all the way down to export my data out of the grid. Because everything's going to be saved now through this software bundle. The SCM, you're not going to be saving images there anymore. You're going to be doing everything through the IXRF bundle. Okay? That's strictly a slave right now. Alright, so the first thing it says, review the Spectra properties. So let's take a look at the Spectra properties. It opened up a base Spectra window because the properties window opened up as well. And this is just a basic properties window saying that, hey, you're doing a 20-second acquisition. That's what we had in there as the default. And there's just some element ID stuff in there, some quantitation, some display stuff like, for instance, display and print settings. If you don't like the background being gray, you can make it like blue or something like that. Or the background could be gray again. You know, whatever. There's a lot of stuff in here, but for now, I'm just leaving everything as a default setting. And don't worry about the property. So the next feature in the pull down is acquire Spectra. So as long as that beam is on, as long as that's on, and if I hit acquire Spectra, it's going to acquire Spectra. For how long? How long does it acquire that Spectra for?
Like 100 seconds.
How long?
100 seconds.
Is he right? Yep, he's right. All right, that's because that's what's here. The preset is 100 seconds, so it's counting 15, 16, unless I tell it to stop, or unless I change the preset and make it, 25 seconds, right? Well, it stopped at 20 because that's when my default was in that other window. So it acquired a Spectra. So here's a Spectra. Great. Okay, what is that? So this is a KEV scale. Right? That's 1 KEV, 2 KEV, 3 KEV, 4 KEV, 5 KEV, 6 KEV, 7, 8, so on and so forth, right? If I shrink the window, right, it go from 0 to 40 KEV. If I open the window, it'll go in betweens, right? So if I decide to come here and left click my mouse on that peak, that's what that is. That is a peak. These are all peaks. Peak, 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 peak. Noise, not sure. This is all noise. It's all noise. So, if I come here and left click my mouse anywhere on any one of these peaks, right? And if I decide to left click, hold the left mouse button down and drag to the right, it separates that peak. If I drag to the left, it shrinks that peak. It'll shrink the whole damn Spectra window down. Right? So I can grab this peak again and just drag, grab the center of this peak, and just drag. So, wherever I left click my cursor, it's telling me the cursor equals 1 KEV, right? And at cursor equals 1.15 KEV. And if there was a peak there, this would be the ID for that peak. So if I left click here, right? If a cursor is sitting at 1.485 KEV, well, guess what? That's where aluminum K alpha 2 line is. So if I double click on aluminum, it will label aluminum. Because that's where aluminum sits on the KEV scale. That's the energized excitation X-ray for aluminum. 1.4 thousand volts excites aluminum. Make sense? And that's why we have a peak for aluminum. Okay, so we acquired the Spectra, and all I went over right now is just using the cursor. Left click the mouse, puts a cursor. Left click, hold, drag to the right, drag to the left, drag up, drag down. You manipulate the Spectra using your mouse. Or you could do it the old way. Grab a slider and start sliding the window, right? Or you can go up, down, shrink, separate. But using your mouse and the cursor is very, very quick, and this is the way I normally do it, but I can't tell you guys how to do this thing. There's a lot of different features. But right now, all I'm doing is going over this flowchart system. All I did was what? All I did was go work with Spectra, and I wanted to acquire Spectra. That's all I've done, and it's acquiring Spectra. For how long again? 25 seconds, right? Unless I tell it to stop, which I'm going to stop. Okay? So the next feature in our flowchart pull down is called what? ID the element. So click on that, and that opens up a periodic table. And I can move my periodic table around if I want to, wherever I want. So there's a periodic chart. So there's 5 different ways of labeling this information. We're going to go over all the ways to label your spectrum. Way number 1. That's my sample. I know what the hell I put in there. I'm going to label it manually. I have aluminum, I have copper, I have gold, and I have some carbon and a little bit of oxygen. So I labeled it myself. First way.
If you know it.
If I know it.
Yes.
That's correct. I knew it, I labeled it. Okay, now I'm going to erase what I just did. See, I'm going to clear list. Okay, this got cleared. Second way of labeling. See this scrolling peak identifier that's here? If I click on enable, and if I slide my scroll peak identifier all the way to the left, you see it starts over with hydrogen? And if I move to the right slightly, it goes to what?
Helium.
And it just continuously cycles through all my elements, right? And so if I started at hydrogen, and if I work my way over to helium, and if I keep moving to the right, and if I keep moving, oh, look at that. It lined up with a peak.
Okay.
I go add. So I just added that. And I keep going over, oh, look at that. It lined up with a peak.
Oh.
Add. And I keep going. Oh, look at that. Lined up with that peak. Add.
Okay.
And I keep going.
Oh.
Whoop. Back up one. It lined up with that peak and lined up with that peak. That's definitely there. Add. We had that guy too. Keep going. Whoop. Hang on. Back up. Add. Keep going. Still waiting for another peak.
How does those peaks correspond then in,
Add. There we go.
to the amount of, let's say, copper? Let's say copper is right here. How would you read that? How many percent?
Well, if you want to get the numbers,
Or parts per billion or whatever
if you want to get the numbers, which we haven't gone over yet, that's our next step. We're still working on labeling.
Okay.
But if you want to skip around a little bit, right? We have 40% copper, 28% aluminum, 1% oxygen, 7% carbon, 21% gold.
Perfect. Cool.
Let's go back now and talk about labeling.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Couldn't resist that.
That's okay. It's okay. It's easy enough to do these things, right? So, let's start from scratch again,
Okay.
right? Sorry, sometimes I move too fast for my own good. Start from scratch again, right? This is okay. We're doing it. We're opening the software. It's okay. Right. Software's open. Work with spectra. Acquire spectra, right? Acquiring the spectra. Great. It remembered the labels from previous that I labeled. So that's why it's labeled right now. It didn't know it. Wasn't smart. Didn't do it all on its own. It remembered. We were on an ID here and see how it remembered everything. So I just go clear a list and it clears a list. The first way of labeling again was I'm going to hit stop. I don't feel like waiting for the spectrum.
Yes.
And I'm just going to hit, usually I like just hit auto vertical scale, it just scales. So the first thing I did was manual label, right? I labeled it myself. The second thing I did was select a scroll peak identifier. And I slid my scroll peak identifier through the elements, and whenever I found an element I liked, I just hit add, right? That's the second way of labeling. The third way of labeling is, you see that there's elements listed down here at the bottom of my spectral window? These are K alpha buttons. So if an element has a K alpha line associated with it, it'll have a button. So if I come in through here and I unlabel this, and I grab my spectral window and I separate this element, this peak, and I click on that button, it labels aluminum. There's a K alpha button. Well, if I separate this peak, what the hell? There's no button. It's not neon, and it's not sodium. What the hell is that? Well, it's not a K alpha line. So that's why there's no button for it. But if I come down over here to this peak, and I open that peak and I label that, well, that's a K alpha button for copper. But guess what? Copper has another peak associated with it down here. Copper has an L line as well. So copper has a K line and an L line.
I like this.
Right? Some elements have multiple lines. So the buttons are strictly for K alpha lines. Right? So carbon, K alpha. Oxygen, K alpha. Gold does not have a K alpha. Gold has an M line. So that's how you label gold.
So the KLM, that electron.
That's right. KLM
structure,
shells
KLM.
around your atom. That's
So
correct.
electron is.
So which one is the strongest shell?
K.
K. So K alpha line is the strongest shell, and that's why there's buttons for the K alpha.
For the K alpha. Got it.
So it helps the new operators because when you get a spectral window, right? So when the spectral window starts acquiring, like it did, right? Let me clear the list. For an operator, it's very easy to say, oh, you know what? Does that line up? Oh, yeah, it does. Let me open up. Oh, yeah, look at that. Aluminum's there too. Great. And then, well, you know what? Carbon. Yeah, that's good. Okay, and oxygen. Okay, I can see that. But what's this guy? All right, he's not lining up. So then I got to go by the cursor. Or, you know, he might be difficult to label via the cursor as well. Because I'm not seeing AU pop up. I'm not seeing AU pop up. So in that regard, there's a fourth way of labeling. You know what? I don't know what the hell is there. You tell me what's there. Question mark. Clear the list, auto ID. Now, keep in mind, I only acquired for 14 seconds, so auto ID didn't do a great job because I only acquired for 14 seconds. It may have needed 30 seconds or 60 seconds or 100 seconds.
Also increase the preset time.
I stopped the acquisition, right? So I would have just let it acquire longer. I would let it acquire 14 seconds.
Okay.
Because I was just impatient. All right, so again, ways of labeling. First way is you label yourself manually, right? You're checking the boxes off manually, right?
Second is enable the.
Second way is, again, if you're on a chart, scroll peak identifier, you label it, right? You scroll through and then you hit add, right? That's the second way. Third way is K alpha buttons, right?
K alpha button.
That's the third way, right? Fourth way is you grab your Fourth way is you grab your cursor, you spread it, you put the peak in, and it tells you where the peak is sitting, 8.055 possible ID, double click that. Fourth way, double click the cursor. Fifth way, I don't know what the hell is there, you tell me auto ID that sucker for me. Which I recommend you guys using auto ID. Sometimes auto ID gives you a lot of arbitraries. In this case it didn't, it just left out one of the elements.
But auto